You have to take that idea and say the Torah says this is nevela, and you're making it mutter to eat. The Torah says it's usher to eat. You can't make it mutter to eat. If it's batel, so the Torah also says it's batel, but you can't be mevatel it. Okay? So what I don't like about bitul l'chadchila is the action of taking something which is mutter and which is usher and making it mutter. Okay? That approach, I think, expresses itself in what you have in the Yerushalmi about its derech liyadel b'gfanim or derech l'tchon b'toch beitam, that the maaseh is not nikar. Once the maaseh is not nikar, so then you're not doing a ma'aseh bittul. Okay? And similarly, if you don't have kavanah to be mevatel, physically I'm being mevatel, but I don't have kavanah to be mevatel. I have kavanah to do hagala on the kli. I want to get rid of the bliya. Right? So that's not quote unquote. I'm taking the idea of gnai, which is not a doraita idea by itself, and I'm elevating it. And the gnai is that the Torah said it's usher, you can't make it mutter. Okay, so that's another.
I still don't get, so if that's true, then who cares what my kavanah was, and who cares what his names are? I don't get why you think that this idea is daf.
Because what I care about is the maaseh bitul, and then you get into these questions of how do you define what a maaseh is. Right? You go to Shabbos, right? Of Melach Shein Tzichul Gufa, for example, just as a hash'ala.
I don't fully understand.
If what's
what
usher,
I care about is the bitul. That doesn't make sense to me.
Better by Malachat Shabbat, Malachat Machshabbat.
No, well, that's a question whether Melach Shein Tzichul Gufa is only Shabbos. I'm just using by example. In other words, when you're doing one thing, and it appears that something else is happening that might not be defined as the bona fide action, right? So you're dragging the kisei, right? And you're making a charitz, but you're just carrying the kisei, right? So what are you doing? So is that an asiyat charitz? It's not asiyat charitz. Right? Or you're making, you don't need the whole, right? So you have these questions of how you define an action. In other words, I could have easily said, I will be moded to the following. Just because I say that what bothers me about bitul isur l'chadchila is that maaseh of the bitul, it doesn't mean that I would automatically say that if you don't have kavanah, then it's okay, or if it doesn't appear to be bitul, then it's okay, right? It's not a two-way street. But if I see, right, there are shitot, that the Yerushalmi, or what the Ran says, that if it doesn't look like bitul, then it's okay, or if you don't have kavanah that it should be bitul, then it's okay. That puts the focus on the action. That's what I'm saying. In order to understand those shitot. Just because I have the focus on the action doesn't mean that I would have to embrace those shitot. But to understand those shitot, I focus on the action. So what's the other possibility, if I'm talking about that now? What's obviously the other possibility is what you have, you go back to the Gemara in Beitza. That mikla kali isura. So the Gemara in Beitza that said that it was that there wasn't a problem of davar sheish lo matirin because the isur gets burned. There's nothing left. Okay, but there are Rishonim that apply that to ein vatal isur l'chadchila. Right. So what does that mean? Or what we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, what we saw in the just one second. Yes, סליחה? אפשר לבקש, אני צריך שקט, בסדר? So what we saw in the Ramah, in the Mechaber, and what we saw in what the Ran says, which I didn't read to you yet, is that if it's a davar mu'at, you're not worried about especially if you mishtamesh b'kli b'shofi. You have a little bit of isser, hits a kli, right, is in the kli, and you want to be mevatel, you always use it b'riboy, so don't worry about it. So why? So what's the problem there? It's bitul isur l'chadchila, it's a davar mu'at. So here, it's not the maaseh that bothers me. What bothers me about bitul isur l'chadchila is maybe you won't be mevatel kara'ui. If I allow you to take a piece of nevela and to throw it into the chulent when there's shishim, so you might sometimes throw into the chulent and there won't be shishim. If I allow you once to throw into the chulent to be marbeh, right? So, and you have to know how much to be marbeh. But I don't want to get into it because maybe you're not going to be marbeh enough. So in other words, I'm just choshesh. It's really a very simple chash. That I'm choshesh, you're not going to be vatel karaui. Yes, I agree. That's why I started off 100%. I agree with you 100%. That when I said that whether bitul isur לכתחילה is an isur d'oraita or an isur d'rabbanan will also can reflect what the nature of the isur is. Right? Remember I said that? This is what I meant. Whereas if you say that the isur is you don't like to be muvatel, because the Torah says to usur, you can't make a mutter. There I can see it both ways. There, that could be an isur Torah to do that. The Torah says it's nevela, it's emphatic. It's nevela with an exclamation point, right? Don't be matter this. Okay? That could be an isur d'oraisa, but that could also be an isur d'rabbanan, which is a gnai. We don't like it. Min Torah you could do it. Min d'rabbanan, the Torah says we don't make a mutter, right? That could be d'oraisa or d'rabbanan. But if I say that the isur of mevatel isur l'chatchila is because of shemelo yivatel karaui, and that I see from the shitot that say if it's a davar muat, then you use it b'shofi, or if the isur is going to be totally destroyed, then it's mutter. That it's very hard to say that should be an isur d'oraisa. I agree with you. That sounds like an isur d'rabbanan. It's a simple shash. Okay. Okay. Now, there could be some other reason why ein vatan is l'chatchila, and that brings us to the flip side of davar sheish lo matirin. Okay, you remember? Okay, according to the Ran, we had an explanation of why we're mechalik between min b'mino, min b'she'eno mino, and davar sheish lo matirin. Is everybody with me, or is it like too late and everybody's melting? Okay, with me or not? Hold on. Okay. So, but according to Rashi, that said, why is there a chilik min b'mino, min b'she'eno mino? So the answer is, what happens in Bittul? In min b'she'eno mino, one way of understanding the Bittul, min b'she'eno mino, is that there's no isur left. In min b'mino, there's isur left, but the Torah lets you eat it. So then, I have two types of Bittul. I have Bittul when there's an isur left, and I have Bittul when there's no isur left. If there's Bittul when there's still isur there, I don't like that l'chatchila. B'diavad I'll let you be somech on it, but l'chatchila I don't like it. If there's Bittul where there's no isur left, then fine, no problem. Okay? So that's the explanation. In min b'mino, the isur is still left. In min b'she'eno mino, there's no isur left. Right? Remember that? That was the Ramah in the Torah Chatat that we saw. Okay? So here it's the flip side. Ein mevatel isur l'chatchila. Okay? It's because I don't like bittul. I will allow you, just think of l'chatchila b'diavad in the simplest way. I will allow you to be somech on bittul b'diavad. L'chatchila, no. Why? Because bittul, even after bittul, it's still usur. Even after bittul, it's still isur here. So if it happens, okay, but I don't allow you to create that situation because I don't like the outcome of bittul. Okay? Now, if that's the case, right, so that's another explanation for the davar muat and the mikla kali yisura, that it could be it's usur min haTorah, and I still take these things into consideration, not because I'm afraid you're not going to vatal karaui. That's not the issue. If mikla kali yisura, or you're always mishtamesh b'shofi, right, so there's no isur left. So there I have no problem with bittul. I only don't like bittul if there's going to be an isur left after the bittul.
I don't understand why the chef in the case will
because there won't be, because there'll never be an isur there. So I don't have a problem with that sort of bittul. Because there's no isur left. Bittul is only if there's isur left. If there's just a little bit, and there's always b'shofi, so there's never anything left.
I don't fully understand the clearness between when there's isur left and when there isn't isur left.
Okay, so there are different ways of constructing situations where I can say there's no isur left. Okay, in davar sheish lo matirin, we talked about it in order to mitaris the question of the chiluk between min b'mino and min b'she'eno mino. right? So he said that in min b'mino there's isur left, and min b'she'eno mino there's no isur left, right? I'm just taking that as a principle and saying that that's how you can explain the issue of mikol kalya isura as well, and mishtamish b'shofi as well. That the problem with ein vatan is l'katchila,
Even though they don't make the distinction between min b'mino and shin.
right? Or maybe they do. Here's an interesting thing. The Nod Yehuda. Did I quote you the Nod Yehuda here?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. So the Nod Yehuda basically takes this approach. Okay. He says, okay, it's his chiddush. Okay. Ani omer davar chadash b'din levatel is l'chatchila. See that? Har'el Rashba v'Aran shekatvu b'shem atosfot shemin haTorah mutar levatel is l'chatchila. Okay, liyashi sugi d'zoro b'sheila. Okay. Im kain daf kadumi d'zoro b'sheila shazroa atzma lo nitbatla klal. It's only a question of the bittul of the tam, but the zroa is not batel. V'nishara b'isura lezar. Okay. V'haya linotna lekohen achar b'shula. Rakatam demafik me'azroa v'nivla b'shar ha'ayil hu shenit batel. V'tam shenit batel lo mish'ar bo iser klal. See that? Aval yavesh b'yavesh levatel ha'isr v'hu nish'ar be'en v'hu ba'olam Ubisura omeid, you got the idea? He said it 3 times. Okay? She'im yavo Eliyahu v'yomar, again Eliyahu, playing halacha l'maisa. She'im yavo Eliyahu v'yomar, shezohi, v'yachatich asura, harei umod be'isuro ha'kadum. I don't know if the Rush would agree with this. Okay? Interesting. Ela kol zman she'ein makirin oto, gzerat ha'katuv, acharei rabim lahatot. ועל כל פנים האיסור באין, ויכול לחזור לאיסורו. בזה לכולי עלמא לדעתי לא התירה התורה לבטלו לכתחילה. ואיך אפשר שדבר שאפילו אחר ביטול, אם יוכר יהיה אסור לבטלו עתה, ועתה הוא מכירו. Right? I have to tell you a personal story. I visited Prague in 1985. It was still communist. So I had to find, so everybody knew where the Har'el was buried, but nobody knew where Nod Yehuda was buried. He's buried in another cemetery. So I found out where the other cemetery was, and it was locked, and I climbed under the fence, and I went to the Nod Yehuda's kever, and there's a minute to say a Chiddush Torah of the person. So I said this Nod Yehuda. I said this at his kever in Prague. So anyway, I felt the kashut because I had thought of the svara myself, and then I saw the Nod Yehuda. So, so this is basically what he's saying, that you can have an Isur Torah levatel isur l'chatchila, right? And it's because, not because I don't like the Maisa Bittul, and not because I'm afraid you're not going to vatel kara'ui. It's I just don't like Bittul. But then it depends, well, what Bittul don't you like? Let's talk about it. Right? So if there's bittul which Isur remains, that's a bittul which I don't like. I'll let you do a b'di'evet, but not l'chatchila. There's bittul that I'm fine with. Right? If there's no Isur left, then it's okay. So he distinguishes between different types of bittul. This is exactly what we're talking about. Okay?
So he kind of sides with the Ran's approach.
Right, but not for the first explanation that I gave. Because I could say the Ran's approach shows that he holds that bittul sachil is only derabbanan, because if it's a harbe, then you don't have to worry about it, right?
But as far as the Isur remaining,
right. So if the Isur is there, so no, that's not the Ran's approach. That's independent of the Ran. Right? The Ran in Davashesh Matirin, no, it was we needed that chiluk to explain Rashi, not to explain the Ran.
Oh, I thought that was the Ran's general approach, that you need to have 2
right, but
conflicting.
That's in order to generate bittul. The consequence of the bittul he didn't talk about. What do you have at the end?
Okay.
What are you left with? That he didn't talk about. That is still up in the air totally. You can say whatever you want in terms of what you achieved through the bittul. Okay? All right, this goes back, I'll just remind you to the Pri Chadash on the page in Tzadi Chet, where he was mavchin between min b'mino between Bitul B'Shishim and Bitul B'Rov also, right? Bitul B'Rov, the Isser is still there, and Min B'She'eino Mino Bitul Shishim, the Isser is not there, right? That's also Meduyak in the Lashon of the Rambam, when he talks about Shishim, Ad Shi Ya'abed Hadavar Me'otzem Mi'uto, right? By its great smallness, right? So it's lost, so it's considered not there, right? But in Bitul B'Rov, there's no Me'otzem Mi'uto. So the Isser is still there, but you're allowed to eat it. The Torah said you can you can eat when you have a row. Okay. Okay. One more point. I don't. No, it's enough time. There's in the Chidushei Ramban. Okay. So the Ramban in Pesachim Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, it talks about K'deirot of Chametz on Pesach. Okay, so the Gemara says that you can proposes that you can leave the kalim over, and you can cook in them shalom b'mino after Pesach, right? And then it's just problem chametz over Pesach, but you can cook shalom b'mino and then it'll be mutter. This chametz over Pesach is only in min b'mino. In min b'she'eino mino, it's mutter, right? As opposed to on Pesach, min b'she'eino mino is also asur. Yes? So he says like this: V'i mishum ein mevatan isur l'chatchila, right? Kaven the letter le'isur be'enei mivatlin. Damyad l'mai de amrina masechet beitza hanimi l'deita le'isur be'enei avalacha mikla kali isur. Okay, so again, it's dumya. See, he's pulling the fast one. Never believe any. The first rule in Lumdus is to be distrustful. Maybe that's why things look the way they are. Is you can't really trust anyone, because mikla kali isura, the Gemara did not say about ein vatl l'chatchila. The Gemara said it about davar sheyesh lo matirin. Okay, but it's okay because the svara is the same svara according to what we said. Okay, so one thing is that the isur is not there anymore, and then he says. Umiu mistabra dahani mili bizman dechi ishtamish behu lav beisura ishtamish behu v'keven debeikara hetei rahava ubesof hetei rahava lav bevatil isur lechatchila havi. What is he saying? When did you use these klei chametz? You didn't cook chametz in kalim on Pesach. Chas v'chalila. We're not talking about people like that. They didn't make it into the Gemara, right? We're talking about the chametz the kalim. You cooked chametz in them before Pesach, right? And now after Pesach, you want to cook chametz in them again, and you have blias chametz in them that was avril of a Pesach. Okay, so here he says there's no bitelis l'chatchila because when you put the chametz, the tam chametz into the kli, it wasn't aser. And now you're cooking chametz in the kli, and it's also not aser. So it's just aser in between. That's not bitelis l'chatchila. What's he saying? He's saying that the blia in the kli is heterabala. When the kli was bolea tam chametz was mutter, right? And now chametz is mutter. So he's saying that's not bitelis l'chatchila. Why? So the Ramban is saying two things. He's saying, first of all, if the Isser isn't there, if it's mikla kali isura, so either, if I don't normally like bittul, I don't have a problem with it here because there's nothing left. If there's some sort of gzeira that there's bittul, that there's, maybe you won't be mevatel kara'ui, so I'm not worried about it here because there's nothing left. Okay? Whichever one. In terms of the totzah, I'm not worried. But maybe there's a problem with the Maisa Bittul. Because there are two problems. They're not cholik on each other. Theoretically, you could have two problems. Why ein vatam l'chatchila? For two reasons. First of all, the Torah says it's us, so you can't be matir it. And second of all, I don't like Bittul. Either I don't like Bittul min Torah, or I'm afraid that the Bittul won't be kara'uya. There's something I don't like about the outcome, one way or another. Right? Those two reasons could both be true. And that's what the Ramban says when he covers his basis. First of all, he says there's no Issur left. So don't worry about the totza'ah. You're worried about taking something which is usr and making it mutter. But when it was boleya, it was mutter, and now it's mutter. So you're not really being matir and isser. Two different issues. He relates to them both independently. That's why he says two reasons. Right? Came the letter isur be'enei mevatlin. Umiu mistabra dahani milud bizman dechi ishtamish behu lav beisur ishtamish behu. If you had these kalim and you cooked chametz in them on Pesach, he would say you can't use them after Pesach. Because that's bitul l'chatchila. Okay? Because we don't, even though there won't be anything left, I don't care. But the ma'isa bitul I don't like. But since you did it beheter, you used the kalim beheter, there's no problem. Okay? Okay. All right. I think we stop here. What we have to complete is this issue of Isurei D'Rabbanan and different types of Isurei D'Rabbanan. Right? I want to be fresh when we talk about that because it's very, very interesting to talk about an Isur D'Rabbanan sheyesh lo ikar min haTorah, an Isur D'Rabbanan she'ein lo ikar min haTorah. You get to the nature of Isurei D'Rabbanan, okay? And maybe Trumas Chutzlaritz is different than everything, right? So you have three types of Isurei D'Rabbanan: yesh lo ikar min haTorah, ein lo ikar min haTorah, or ein lo ikar min haTorah klal, right? Something that's a zecher ba'alma. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And the next sugya is going to be nafal achad min ha'ta'arovet. Okay, so I'll send you that. I'll send you the makarot with enough time to go over it before Shabbos. Yeah.